What is going on, everyone? How are you doing? I hope you're doing good, because it is good to feel good. And I am here today with a special video because today is the 11-year anniversary of this YouTube channel, so woo, yeah! And as is tradition with anniversary videos on this channel, here is the clip of my very first video. Yeah, we don't need to go back to that. And I still find it crazy to think that that person, that Ollie Walker that I knew who was 14 years old, has definitely come leaps and bounds to the Ollie Walker that he is now at the age of 25, and I feel damn proud of that. And I wanted to celebrate this video with talking about something that I'm passionate about, and that is wrestling. Now, I mean, it's fair to say that over the years I have, gradually been putting, little bits of wrestling content here and there. I've done, talking about, a few things that have happened in wrestling. I've been to wrestling events and done vlogs. In fact, I was at WrestleMania 35 in 2019 at MetLife Stadium. I went to Wrestle Kingdom 14 at the Tokyo Dome back in 2020, and it's crazy to think that with the latter, that was the last time that I attended any wrestling event whatsoever. So feels a bit crazy to think about that. And even though, obviously the pandemic has happened in the last 2 years and no wrestling events have really been, well, wrestling events have happened, but they've not been available to see for the public. So I think I might just get out and see some wrestling again, because that would be fun. And, put some more wrestling content on this channel at the end of the day. But what I wanted to do with this video is talk about something, and that is my 10 favourite WWE matches. Now, it's interesting to note that I have actually done this video before. In fact, I did one just over 5 years ago talking about my 10 favourite WWE matches. But it's fair to say that since then there have been matches that I have wanted to add to this list. And yeah, I thought, you know what, 5 years is a good enough time to do an updated list. So that's exactly what we're doing today. So with that being said, I'm Ollie Walker and this is my 2022 update for my 10 favourite WWE matches. Woo yeah, let's do this. Starting off at number 10, TLC 2 from WrestleMania X7. Now, the Electric Boogaloo edition of the TLC match is hands down one of the best incarnations of said match. Just a year prior, WrestleMania 2000 saw the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian all take part in a triangle ladder match, which is often seen as a precursor to the original table, ladders and chairs match that took place at SummerSlam 2000. Then came the sequel and it upped the ante with, more dangerous weapons spots and just Jeff Hardy being Jeff Hardy. Great cameos throughout from Rhino, Spike Dudley and Lita, and some of the most dangerous spots ever seen in a wrestling match to this point. And I'm just going to leave this image of Jeff Hardy being speared by Edge in midair just about here, because that was absolute madness. 2001 was a time when the WWF Tag Team division was thriving, and it was nice to have 3 teams from said division delivering a car crash showcase that would help to cement their respective legacies all going forward. Number 9, the 2020 Men's Royal Rumble. Now, I'm a massive fan of a Royal Rumble match. I, watch it every year. I watch it if it's good. I watch it even if it's not so good. I just love Royal Rumble matches. And one thing I love about a Royal Rumble in particular is when a match has the chance to tell an intricate story and have little moments that link it throughout from start to finish. And the 2020 Royal Rumble, in my opinion, is a good example of that. In fact, there are 3 points that, connect the dots together. And those moments are Brock Lesnar entering at number 1 as the WWE Champion, no less, and going on to dominate more than half the field. Drew McIntyre entering at number 16, eliminating Brock and eventually going on to win the Rumble. And then at 21, the sudden return of a beloved wrestler who has long since retired, and I wonder who that could be. So of course, Brock Lesnar started the match at number 1 and eliminated entrants 2 through 14 with ease, and even set a new record for consecutive eliminations in a single Rumble match. And then of course, Drew McIntyre entered at number 16, and with a little assistance of Ricochet, Claymore kicked Brock out of the Rumble and into oblivion to a massive pop. Then 5 entrants later, the words "You Think You Know Me" played on the speakers, and the crowd lost their marbles and even brought grown men to tears. And I'm not ashamed to say that this is a moment, a wrestling moment, a really good feel-good moment that has brought me to tears, and I'm not ashamed to admit that, because what I find about this, it's so satisfying to see someone return after so long, and especially with Edge. Because for Edge, it was the first time in 9 years that he had appeared in any wrestling capacity, and the satisfying look on his face told the entire story. He entered the match delivering a few spears in the process, and even the first spear got missed on the initial broadcast. How did they manage that? Madness. A few entrants later, Randy Orton appeared, and we had a brief rated RKO reunion. But then again, this is the Royal Rumble. There are no friends, there are no alliances, they're not built to last, of course. Randy Orton got eliminated courtesy of Edge, and then we came to the final three, which of course saw Roman Reigns eliminate Edge, and then Roman Reigns receiving his own little Claymore kick, and then off the back of that, Drew McIntyre threw Roman out of the ring, and he was the winner, cementing his ticket on the road to WrestleMania. Although saying that, with WrestleMania 36 being pirate themed, it was more a case that he was punching his ticket on the 7 seas to WrestleMania. I don't know. Answers on a postcard, please. Number 8, Sasha Banks versus Bayley, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Now, women's wrestling in WWE has come a long way from being bra and panties matches, cheap filler content, and a simple bit of eye candy for the lads. This match took place during the poorly named Divas Revolution era of WWE, a term that would later be retired along with the butterfly belt within the following year. The actual revolution itself, however, started in NXT, especially during the era that focused on the 4 horsewomen: Bayley, Sasha Banks, Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair. This contest had a big match feel about it, especially with Sasha Banks being escorted by security in an SUV, and Bayley sporting an attire with tributes to the recently deceased Dusty Rhodes. All lovely stuff. Bayley tried everything in her arsenal to pull off the victory, but to no avail. Sasha used pure dickhead heel tactics to keep her NXT Women's Championship, even to the point where she was stomping on Bayley's injured hand. This all came to a nice lovely crescendo, which would see Bayley delivering a Poison Rana and then a Bayley to belly onto Sasha Banks, and then winning the match, becoming the NXT Women's Champion. And honestly, this was such a lovely feel-good victory for the former hugger, and she even got to celebrate with her fellow horsewomen before the NXT faithful in the Barclays Center. As a side note, I should also say I really enjoyed their Iron Woman sequel that took place at NXT TakeOver Respect, including the moment where Sasha Banks stole Izzy's headband, remember Bayley's big superfan, and made her cry, once again using pure dickhead heel tactics. Number 7, The Revival vs DIY, 2 out of 3 falls, NXT TakeOver Toronto. By coincidence, this match took place on my 20th birthday, and what a nice little gift it was to receive on that day. It's a shame there's not a great focus on WWE's main roster with tag team wrestling these days, especially considering when you had NXT until its 2.0 rebrand having great tag team wrestling. And look back at 2016 where you had the teams of The Revival, now known as FTR and AEW, and DIY, the team of Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa, dominating the scene. This was a perfect sequel to their equally excellent match at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, and even included some nice callbacks to that match, including the moment where Scott Dawson had Gargano locked in an inverted figure 4 leg lock, only this time Gargano was able to reach the ropes. This match included multiple moments throughout where either team could have won, including the moment where both teams attempted their opponent's finishers on one another, wherein the Revival failed to meet in the middle, whereas DIY were able to shatter the machine. But alas, DIY walked out the victors after an amazing ending sequence which would see Gargano and Ciampa lock their signature submission holds on Dashwater and Scott Dawson respectively, and despite both men not wanting to give in, they submitted, and DIY had their moment of glory again before the NXT faithful. And also, shout out to the guy in the FC Schalke shirt during the post-match celebrations. Good stuff. Number 6, Bret Hart vs the British Bulldog, SummerSlam 1992. Now, this is perhaps one of the best WWE matches to have ever taken place in the United Kingdom, and this saw brothers-in-law Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith come together in the main event of SummerSlam 1992 at the original Wembley Stadium, and this was a clash for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, it should be noted that Smith's road to this match was troubling because he was dealing with his own personal demons at the time and didn't meet with Bret Hart until the night before SummerSlam, wherein which Bret laid out the match plan. As Hart recalls, Smith drew a blank right out of the gate by simply admitting by saying, "Bret, I'm fucked," and from there Bret proceeded to call the match spot for spot, and that's a testament to his nickname, the excellence of execution. There was a memorable spot later on into the match where both men went for a clothesline, both hit the floor, and whilst lying prone, Bret proceeded to wrap his legs around Davey Boy before standing up and locking him in the sharpshooter, something of which he practiced on with his then wife Julie late one night. After that, Hart attempted a sunset flip onto Smith, only for Smith to counter him into a successful pinfall, before a massive roar from the crowd, and Smith was victorious, with both men celebrating post-match and embracing. And Hart would later go on record to say that carrying Smith to this level of excellence is one of his greatest in-ring achievements. Number 5, Daniel Bryan vs Kofi Kingston, WrestleMania 35. Now, some people will look at the build to this match as a copy-paste job of Bryan's rise to the top just 5 years prior to this. Yes, there are some similarities. Yes, Kofi was branded as a B+ player by Daniel Bryan of all people, but it's mad to think this match was never supposed to happen. Kofi Kingston found himself replacing Mustafa Ali in the Elimination Chamber match, performing wonderfully in the gauntlet preceding this match and making it as far as the final 2 in the chamber itself, only to succumb to Bryan's running knee. This was all well received by the audience and put Kofi in a potential position for a WWE Championship match down the line. Now, there was all this will he, won't he have this match, but we eventually got there. This match felt special given it was not only Kofi's first singles match at WrestleMania, it was also Kofi's first one-on-one match for the WWE Championship, and it took place before 82,000 plus at MetLife Stadium, and myself amongst them. Both men put on a great show and included many moments throughout where it was almost possible that Kofi was going to lose, including a dramatic near fall which would see him almost succumb to Bryan's running knee, but not this time. Eventually, Bryan would lock in the label lock, Kofi would fight his way out of it, stomp a mud hole onto him, trouble in paradise, 1, 2, 3, Kofi Kingston was the WWE Champion, and everyone was so happy. I was amongst this crowd, and everyone was so happy, and it was so joyous to see Kofi finally have his moment, and even celebrated with his New Day brethren and his kids, and it was so lovely. And honestly, again, this is a moment of wrestling that brought a tear to my eye. In fact, here's a clip of that.
This is really sweet. New Day shit. Oh, yeah! I'm so fucking happy for Kurt. This has been brilliant. That's what's up. Woo! Well done, Kofi.
Number 4, John Cena vs CM Punk, Money in the Bank 2011. Now, it's fair to say that there are some real life events that often come into play for world title matches, for better or worse. You had Sergeant Slaughter embracing Iraq during the Gulf War when he was world champion, Kurt Angle became an American hero post 9/11 when he won the world championship, and then the events surrounding the Montreal Screwjob, to name a few. And then there's the tale of one CM Punk threatening to leave with the WWE Championship on the same night his contract was expiring. After an explosive unscripted promo helped expose the business, Punk was seen as this unsung hero in Chicago when he entered the Allstate Arena to a messiah-like reception, in contrast to John Cena entering into a chorus of booing. And in my opinion, a hot wrestling crowd can make or break a wrestling match, and ultimately it was the former thanks in no part to them putting their faith into their hometown indie darling. If CM Punk was to win the WWE Championship, this was the right time to do so, and even to the point where we nearly saw a screwjob finish, with John Laurinaitis being knocked down by John Cena, with him saying, "Not like this, Cena proceeded to enter the ring again, ate a GTS from Punk, 1, 2, 3, CM Punk was finally WWE Champion, and even after an attempted cash-in attempt from Alberto Del Rio, proceeded to leave through the crowd and even blew Vince McMahon a lovely kiss in the process. And it legitimately looked like CM Punk was walking out with the title. In actuality, he had actually signed a contract extension just hours before, making it possible for him to win the title on a night where it looked like he was legitimately leaving the WWE. Crazy. Number 3, Triple H vs Shawn Michaels vs Chris Benoit, WrestleMania 20. Now, this is a controversial pick to put on this list, and I understand it's quite awkward to go back and watch this match for obvious reasons, but looking at this purely from a wrestling perspective, it's a testament to each performer on how well they delivered on this night. Chris Benoit entered this match having won the 2004 Royal Rumble from the number 1 spot, whereas Shawn Michaels and Triple H continued their on and off feud that had been going since 2002. And then the trio went on to deliver an amazing triple threat match, and perhaps this is the template for great triple threat matches that we've seen at WrestleMania over the years. Each man wanted to win this match, and even to the point where we saw a brief DX reunion take Benoit out of the equation. Eventually he would bounce back, take Michaels out of the equation, and nearly succumb to a pedigree, but countered it into a crossface and made the game submit, making him the World Heavyweight Champion. And in the post-match celebrations, he celebrated with his good friend and then WWE Champion Eddie Guerrero, in a moment that's sadly been overshadowed by the events that would also follow for both men in the following years. Number 2, The Undertaker vs Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 25. Now, it's a bit mad to think that we nearly got Undertaker vs Vladimir Kozlov in place of this. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't, but I digress. That would be someone's guilty pleasure, I imagine. This match obviously tops a lot of lists for the best WrestleMania matches, the best match of all time, etc. And it's clear to see why. The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels are simply two of the best, and it's crazy to think that it took until both men were in their 40s to have this match at WrestleMania, and by this point both men had built their respective careers and legacies to carve out into this match. I love the underlying theme of this match being a battle between the light of day and the dark of night, which was respectively exemplified by Shawn Michaels descending to the stage like an angel from above, whereas The Undertaker rose from the stage like a demon from the underworld. Both men crafted a great story, and there were many moments throughout where Shawn Michaels almost ended a streak with a case of sweet chin music, but ultimately never came to pass. Ultimately, after tombstones, last rides and choke slams to no avail, Undertaker caught Michaels attempting a moonsault into a decisive tombstone piledriver for the victory. And then the following year we would see an equally excellent sequel to this match, one with an added stipulation that if Michaels lost, his career would be over. And of course, it would mark the end for the Heartbreak Kid. Well, before Crown Jewel happened, but let's forget about that. Number 1, Johnny Gargano vs Adam Cole, 2 out of 3 falls, NXT TakeOver New York. What should have been the culmination to Johnny Gargano's blood feud with then NXT champion Tommaso Ciampa ultimately didn't happen due to Ciampa requiring neck surgery and ultimately relinquishing the NXT Championship just weeks prior to the show. As a quick compromise, Adam Cole earned his way into this match and along with Gargano were set to clash for the vacant championship. It didn't matter who was walking away with the championship that night. What mattered was that the NXT faithful in the Barclays Center, again myself amongst them, were emotionally invested in this match and would definitely have accepted either result. Cole got the advantage early on with the first 4, and Gargano had to fight tooth and nail to come back out on top. Cue mind games from Cole, interference from the Undisputed Era, and a dramatic near fall that almost put an end to the Johnny Wrestling fairy tale. Ultimately, Gargano fired back and saw his opportunity arrive by placing Adam Cole into a decisive Gargano escape, and the crowd erupted in pure joy. I was an emotional wreck when Candice LeRae celebrated with her husband in the ring. In fact, here's a clip of that.
I've got tears in my eyes right now. This is why I love wrestling.
And then when both were on stage as the watermark appeared on screen, a recovering Tommaso Ciampa appeared from out of nowhere, and instead of ending TakeOver on a sour note, it ended on a lovely note instead, surprise surprise, with all 3 sharing an embrace with the crowd looking on. And yeah, those are my 10 favourite WWE matches updated. I'll tell you one thing I really liked about this video is, like, you know, writing down my notes and, you know, doing my research and even watching the matches back before filming this, and honestly it's been quite joyous to go back and watch these matches because, like, you know, matches that there's one match on this list that happened before I was even born, but I've, you know, taken the time to watch it. It's a great match. But obviously all the subsequent matches that are on this list have happened during the time when I've been around. And honestly, it's lovely to go back and watch wrestling, and hence why I always say wrestling is one of my favourite pastimes. And we all enjoy wrestling for whatever reason, whether that be the entrances, you know, the wrestling itself in the matches, you know, the storytelling that happens, you know, bits of comedy, or even just like a combination of all of those. But I love wrestling, and as I mentioned in that clip, you know, I was an emotional wreck. And that was a lovely moment, and I always think back to that moment, and like, it's stuff like that that encapsulates why I love wrestling. I should just quickly mention before I wrap up this video that I am uploading this, of course, on the 11th anniversary of my YouTube channel, but it also should quickly mention that on this day, as see clearly, I am flying back from Mexico, although rather I'm probably back from Mexico at the point of this video being uploaded, so that's something to look forward to, and I look forward to, you know, getting my content out from this trip, and hopefully there are no shenanigans along the way. As I say, I have no idea at this point because I'm deliberately filming this in advance ahead of me going away, but nonetheless, I look forward to, you know, this trip, and I look forward to, you know, putting out content from this trip. So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will leave you with some advice, and that is always to enjoy yourself, stay safe, and make the most of every opportunity that comes your way. Thank you for watching, and peace.